Hey everyone, my name is Nick Lambert. I'm the CEO of Doc Labs and welcome to our latest live event. Today's topic is all around how digital ID is reshaping the travel industry. So it's a pretty big topic. It affects us all because most of us travel fairly frequently. On this episode, we'll be joined by Annet Steenbergen, who's advisor at the EU Digital Identity Wallet Consortium, and I think also a consultant to many firms. And we also have Nick Price, who's the CEO of Netsys and also the co-chair of the Decentralized Identity Foundation Travel and Hospitality Working Group. That was a mouthful. Thank you for joining us, guys. How are you?
All good.
Great. Thanks for having us.
Oh, my pleasure. So as I was saying, the travel really is impacting us all. And so it's really down from, boarding a flight, checking into a hotel. We're constantly handing over ID. We're using technologies like digital wallets. And we're starting to think about how we can adapt new technologies like verifiable credentials and biometrics into making a much more kind of seamless travel experiences. But there is a lot of hype in the market. We see that with every new technology. And so what we'd like to do today with our esteemed guests is really sort through what is real, what's not, what's ready today, what's in the works, and what does the travel industry need to do to be able to prepare for this kind of new wave of technology that's really with us now. For those of you familiar, this will be a fairly routine format for us. It's going to be a 1 hour session. We have 45 minutes of kind of moderated Q&A between myself and the guests. And then we open up for a 15-minute or so Q&A from the audience. If you'll be watching this live, you'll be doing so in Riverside. So please feel free to submit your questions into the application. And Francisco, who's waiting in the wings, will pick out the best questions and we'll ask them to the panelists towards the end. If you are listening, thank you very much for joining us. And please do let us know where you're listening from. It's always great to see the kind of global coverage that we can get here. So without further ado, let me introduce, or let me enable the guests to introduce themselves. Ladies first, Annette, please, if you wouldn't mind taking a couple of minutes to introduce yourself and what brought you into the travel and identity industry.
Thanks, Nick. I started working at the Dutch Immigration Naturalization Service quite a while ago and ended up in border management, more the policy side of things. So I was never, busy with all the asylum, etc. I ended up in a niche and ended up doing that internationally. Posted internationally as an attaché, and then at some point ended up in Aruba and needed a job. Started working for the government there and was able to use my old network, and which was all around public-private cooperation to facilitate passengers traveling from A to B, and ended up doing the Aruba Happy Flow. I was the lead and co-initiator, and that brought me into the world of digital identity and travel. And we were by chance the first with what is now old school, a local biometric token in a local identity management system. Again, that's old school now, but back then it was 2013. It was the first in the world. But it taught me a lot about identity. And of course, if you cross a border, it's always about an identity. So that came along. And then I represented Aruba in IATA for many years and was involved in working groups at WTTC, joined ICAO meetings, etc. So I became internationally active during COVID, was involved in health credentials, and then ended up the last 2 years, one of my main focuses was the EU Digital Identity Wallet Consortium, which is a co-funded consortium, co-funded by the European Commission to pilot and test the EU Digital Identity Wallet. And they focused on 3 use cases: payment, the business wallet, and travel. And that's why I joined that one, of course, because of travel. So happy to discuss this more.
Great introduction. Thanks, Annette, and great to have you with us today. Nick, if you'd be kind enough to do the same.
Sure. Well, hello, everybody. So my name's Nick Price. I would class myself as a technologist. I come from way back from the Unix world. But I found myself at the end of the 90s in retail in Hong Kong and digital retail, and somewhat unexpectedly transitioned into hospitality as CIO and CTO for Mandarin Oriental Hotel Group, where I did that gig for 12 years. And shortly thereafter, the same role for a little hotel company as it was starting out in Amsterdam, called Citizen M Hotels, which I did for 8 years. Having moved out of that, I have my own company, and I've been offering my services to a number of companies, but I'm very, very passionately interested in identity and have been for a long time, and the digital representation of the traveler or the travel providers to make interaction more effective. And I've been leading a project in the Middle East. I can't say exactly where it is, but it's a seamless travel project, decentralized identity. It's been going for about 3.5 years, and it's focused on the in-destination experience. Really what happens once you leave the airport, the arrival airport, because others, such as Annette and all the others, are doing that good work up front. And so our view was to focus on the things that nobody's doing right now and to add value there. And hopefully we can join things up and make it better for everybody.
Very good. Thank you. So you're kind of leaning on Annette's shoulders and building on the good work that she's doing and the rest of our colleagues.
There you go.
Yeah, very good.
Yep.
The next question, just to maybe just scratch the surface a little bit, because I think a comprehensive answer here could almost comprise the rest of the webinar itself. But just at a very high level, maybe even just picking one or two examples, going back to you, Annette. How can digital ID improve the travel journey for your average traveler?
So we have all kinds of versions of digital identity already. But if you travel, you have to comply with rules and regulations. You as a traveler, but your airline, your ferry, your hotel, your car rental, they have to comply with rules and regulations. And so you can upload a picture of your passport and send it on. But to use a technical term, the high level of assurance is not guaranteed. And it can that passport copy can end up anywhere, right? Now, there are some apps to do that, but the good news is we have a international standard that ICAO developed together with member states in a working group, which is the ICAO DTC, Digital Travel Credential. And that is a official version, secured, signed, that contains the file of a passport. So with that, we can do a lot more nowadays. And then you can have a digital, you can share it digitally, and then you comply with a rule and a regulation. Now, there are some issues with this because there is no selective disclosure possible. I can dive into that later if you want. But this is a really important step to make that with a digital identity that we call a digital travel credential, or ICAO DTC type 1. We can comply with rules and regulations, and the airline or the hotel has a high level of assurance that you are who you are, and then they comply with whatever national or international or local rule and regulation they have to comply with.
Great. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, so really I suppose it makes it easier for the user because it's one less thing to carry around. I mean, most of us are traveling with our phones, certainly in the developed world, at least we have that luxury, and having a separate physical document is sometimes annoying unless your phone battery runs out. So that's one of the advantages. And the other one, like you say, is for actually the organizations themselves. They have much more assured verification that you are who you say you are.
Exactly. I must add, though, that the DTC Type 1, you still need to have your physical document with you.
Okay, that's good to know.
Yes, you cannot cross a border with only that. you can cross the border faster in the future. And there have been pilots that have been run like that, but you still need your physical
Understood.
document. It's going to be a while before we really go without a physical document and cross borders.
Yeah, thank you. Great answer, Annette. Thank you. And Nick, from your perspective, you're, like you said, you're kind of looking a little bit further on through the journey, through the experience. How are you seeing digital ID improving the travel journey?
Well, there's actually 6 areas that I'd touch on here, and I'll go through them very, very briefly. But I just want to land on the DTC and how that and information derived from the passport will be used and should be used. When you check into a hotel, for example, there are a wide variety of laws in different regulations in different European countries, specifically, and over in Asia, that the hotels know who the traveler is, who the guest is, and who's staying in the hotel. That is, if you've been to Italy and the people disappear with your passport for 24 hours, this is exactly the process that they're trying to undertake. It's horrible for everybody. It's broken. The opportunity for digital representation hopefully will be realized with something as simple as a tap, an NFC presentation at check-in, or even a prior to arrival, not just of the identity information that is required to prove who you are and satisfy the security services, but perhaps also your reservation information for the hotel. And you might even get a door key back through that same single interaction with a simple puck on the front desk. This is where it's going. And if you do that, and you consider that all of the things you need to do to check into a hotel are actually done either prior to arrival, or you've just done it through a tap, what's the role of a front desk? Why would you even have one? What are they there to do? Well, move them out, and they can actually be greeting you and saying hello, right? So this is the enablement that actually happens, and transition that sort of mindset to Las Vegas, where you've got lines that are 100 meters long before you can get to the front desk, and you can see the opportunity there, and everybody wins. And so that's really good. But beyond that, that's just sort of simple transactional enablement, but hugely impactful. There are some areas where this technology, I do think, does really offer opportunity. And the things that I'm going to just quickly talk about now are actually work in progress and things that are real. I do want to leave you with that. So one is traveler profile and preferences fit for the decentralized age. Now, surprisingly, my dietary restrictions or my languages that I speak or my favorite wines are not actually derived from passport information, right? This is the fundamental essence of service. It's the information required in order to personalize and to anticipate and provide service. And that information needs to be stored somewhere. The only effective place to store it is with the traveler themselves, because they're the only ones that actually know, right? And now you have the tools. You have the tools to be able to provide that information at every point, but only just the information that's needed for that particular interaction that you're doing. Just the hotel information, or just the taxi information, or just the restaurant information. So hugely important. There's work underway there, which I can talk about, and how to actually represent that information technically. Next one would be, everybody's talking about it, agent to agent, AI agent to agent, right? Why is this important? This is important because we are now in the age of traveler as travel agent. Physical travel agents disappeared for personal travel. And actually that travel agent responsibility is really hard for anything other than a simple point-to-point overnight trip. And I would suggest it's getting harder because you don't really know whether the site that you're on is real, whether the hotel that you're being sold is actually exists. And if you're a lead traveler organizing a 2-week family holiday, you know exactly how stressful that actually is. So again, there's places that I could point you to say this is real, and go and have a look. Third one, if you think about nearly all travel is booked few days out, 3 weeks out, whatever it is. There's time. The ability to engage, to chat between the traveler and each travel provider that provides an element of that journey, and to perhaps build commerce over the top of that chat without needing to go out of band to WhatsApp or send a link to a website. Hugely important, hugely important. And what happens today? We all know what our experience is today. Our experience is we book 3 months for a trip that's 3 months ahead, and what do we get? We just get bland spam marketing emails that end up in a folder. Everybody loses, right? So providing the tools to be able to do these things and do these things effectively is right in front of us as an opportunity. And again, there's technology right there that is being used for that purpose right now. And in my projects, we have done this. Next one, physical access control. Physical access control. So your identity is really the only key that you should ever need, actually. But today it's really broken with hotel apps and door locks that require an app and futzing around. But with a decentralized identity technology, you have a real great opportunity here because you can make things as simple as a tap. And it really is effective and it really does work. And there are companies out there right now doing this. So huge opportunity area, fully aligned with DIDs, fully aligned with VCs, fully aligned with wallets, etc. Last one, loyalty, right? Your old leather wallet's probably full of plastic cards of travel loyalty, what I would call points and prizes loyalty model. That's not the loyalty that people really want today. What they want is recognition and reward. The kind of thing that you're in destination. You think of this as in destination loyalty that is not loyal to one brand, but is loyal to a destination where there's maybe your sort of hotel and many services around. And you can think of perhaps the nightclub bouncer that moves you to the head of the queue for entry because you're staying at a suite in a nearby hotel, or priority access to taxis when you're exiting a conference, or a members hour VIP shopping at nearby luxury fashion stores. Something like digital receipting, creating an economic footprint of your in-destination journey. There are so many opportunities here, honestly, that we just need the tools in the hands of enough travelers, and loyalty will probably never be the same again.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds utopian. It just sounds amazing when you kind of talk through it like that. And I know that I would definitely like to kind of pick into or dig into some of that stuff as we go, Nick, in terms of where we're at, in terms of when will we start to see that more commonly available. But yeah, I'd love to hear a bit more about the experience. And Annette, kind of going back to you, like a big part of your work right now is really looking in the kind of EUDI space. So these kind of EIDAS2 compliant wallets and making sure we have this interoperable experience. That's been a big focus for you, and I know that you're involved in a lot of or certainly some of the large scale pilots there. What have been some of the kind of key learnings that you're seeing come out of those pilots? What should we be excited about, and maybe are there some things that we should be a little bit wary about?
Shall I quickly give a bit of an overview
of what
the EUDI Wallet is?
Excellent.
Because because we all have our Apple or a Google Wallet, I guess, on our phone, so we're familiar with that. But this is different. Yes. It's a regulation that was adopted by the EU Parliament, meaning every member state will put it into their law as well. And it was adopted in May of 2024, and December 2026, which is around the corner, every member state will have to issue a wallet to whoever wants to use one. Now that'll be basic wallets probably, I think, to start with, but soon we will also have more extensive wallets, and we will have private wallets. That's another thing. What is unique about this wallet is that usually you tell Apple or Google that you are who you are. But in this case, it is your government that issues your person identification data in your wallet as the anchor in your wallet. So you are Annet Steenbergen with a high level of assurance, and that anchors to any credential you want to use. So that is very specific, and it will affect not just travel, but it'll affect, healthcare. You'll have health credentials in there, your insurance, but your academic credentials. You get access to your government services. Payment will be a big part of it. I think there will be use cases we haven't even thought of. It's going to affect everything, but we have to build that ecosystem. That's why these large-scale pilots are running, co-funded by the EU. What we're wrapping up right now, so there will be soon at the EU Commission an overview of all the successes. One of the things I would like to highlight, that is, we've run quite a few pilots, and a lot of stuff we've done is technical learnings and standard setting, and I refer you to our GitHub page and our website for any deep dive that anybody wants to do, EUDI Wallet Consortium.org or the GitHub EWC, and you can read a lot. But for instance, one pilot we did was using the wallet to, in one flow, make a payment, prove you are a student, and get your discount and get your ticket in one flow. So instead of usually you make a payment, you then share that you are a student, and then you get your ticket either in an email and then you have to add it to your wallet. This was all in one flow. So that is pretty unique. And the merchant on the other end has a secure payment. It doesn't have a fake student ID. So it just knows you're a student. It knows and it issues you the ticket, which the student can then use to use the ferry. So that is pretty unique. It sounds simple, but that isn't simple, of course. But that's one of the things that I think is a learning that we made that work. There are learnings. We've done a very interesting pilot, checking in. That's ongoing actually right now. If you look us up on LinkedIn, you can still join. I posted it like 2 days ago. You can still join that pilot to use a wallet and see how that would work to check in. So you would check in and then it asks you, do you want to use your wallet to share verified passport data with the airline? And the airline then has verified passport data, but then not from an app, but seriously verified passport data that is from the government. So it is with ease of use. For hotels, we had a similar, but it sounds very simple, but a very important pilot. In Spain, since last year or 2 years, there is a new law whereby you have to collect 20 fields of data information from a guest that wants to check in. It's very cumbersome. It is very secure. Peculiar. You have to give all that data. And the hotels are not very happy with this because it doesn't give an easy check-in. You can either do it up front or you can do it at the counter. Now, I checked in a couple of weeks ago in Madrid. It was a smaller hotel. The guy took my passport and he was about to make a copy. I'm like, no, don't make a copy of my passport. He said, but otherwise I'll fill it in for you. It's such a hassle. So I said, no, then I'll just fill it in myself. Because these 20 fields of information. And we, with Visit Benidorm, ran a pilot whereby we used the EUDI Wallet, and we uploaded something that's called a photo ID. It's an ISO standard. It's not been official, but it hopefully soon will be. And this photo ID incorporates a DTC. Lots of abbreviations here, but the importance is that you have this ICAO DTC, and I already explained that you can't. There's no selective disclosure possible. So if you share a DTC, you have to share the whole file because it is meant to be used by border authorities. And of course, at the border, they need your whole passport. But hotels should not have all your data. Often the local rule and regulation says name, date of birth, nationality. from the travel document. So this photo ID incorporates a DTC, but then signs each attribute separately, whereby you can use it in the selective disclosure. And we piloted that, and actually I'm not fully correct on my previous example. The Lufthansa, it's actually with Lufthansa and Amadeus, the pilot that's currently running with the check-in. That's also using the photo ID. So to be clear, technically, of course, you can selectively disclose a ICAO DTC, but then it's not a legally anymore. So you have to use another solution. So that's what we've used, and that was very successful. And it may sound simple, but that was actually the using your wallet to share that data.
Yeah, and the photo ID.
Oh, sorry, in a proximity, in a proximity use case and remote.
Got it.
So either use a QR code when you check in, or do it before via an email, and then use a QR code.
Got it.
Sorry,
no,
Nick.
It's all good, and really great answer, Annette, again. And what kind of do you get a sense of the scale of the pilots thus far? Like, I mean, how many is that something you reveal in terms of the level of participation that you're currently seeing for those? Like, how wide are the pilots?
They're called large-scale pilots, but the exact numbers I cannot share with you yet. I hope that we have that afterwards.
Got it.
But they're large-scale, and we've done pilots with payments, and of course with business wallets.
Fantastic.
Something that will also change the travel industry. But that's maybe another podcast.
Yeah, probably it is. Nick, coming back to you, you gave us these 6 great kind of use cases at the start, which just, like I say, sound really amazing. And you've also talked about, I think, on kind of LinkedIn and other places, decentralized identity being some of the most consequential technologies of our time was the specific quote. And what, in your opinion, Nick, what makes it so transformational to the travel industry? And maybe you're just kind of building on some of the things that you've already said.
Yes, well, I think I gave you some examples of how transformational it can be, and I do stress these are mostly real, right? And in my projects, we've actually done POCs and actually demonstrated them, and they're either real projects, real products, or they're work in progress. But what I would say is, if you stand back and look at travel, it is by its very nature decentralized, right? Because travel is a physical journey through a decentralized ecosystem of travel providers. That's what it is. And even the shortest trip requires 3 or 4 travel products that you need to purchase and stitch together in a sequence. And there isn't really any one merchant, not even the largest OTA, where you can go and buy it all and put it all together. And that's particularly true once you leave the airport, right? Once you get in destination, and I'm thinking about sort of attractions and tours and experiences, most of that is just left to in the moment when you're there. So there's a real opportunity. Second opportunity is an opportunity, well, I think an opportunity for everybody, is that, if you look at what has happened to travel in the last 25 years since, or 30 years since the browser first started arriving, what you'll find is the travel providers have been largely disintermediated from the traveler today. And some of the smaller guys are really quite distanced from the customer that's arriving and that has bought their product. So it is possible, and certainly I hope that the peer-to-peer nature of the identity model that we have here would actually put some foundation in place that will allow that model to be redressed. We're never going to get to 100% of commerce, 100% of transactions peer-to-peer. But for your best customers, for example, your repeat customers, why not? Because it makes sense for everybody, particularly when you can increase the digital payload and put some profile and preferences with that, for example. The technology here also, when we talk about decentralized identity for travel, we often just frame it as a technology that equips the traveler. But actually, that's really not the case. The traveler is certainly equipped, but the travel providers themselves at the other end of the conversation need to be similarly equipped. And it doesn't just stop there, because we're talking about traveler identity, we're talking about organizational identity, but we're also, we have identity for things. And you know what? We have a lot of things in travel. So how about a hotel building that has an identity, right? Or a separate from the owners of that building and separate from the operating company that operates a hotel business in that building. Why is that important? That's important because those elements change in real time constantly, right? So a hotel gets sold or reflagged. You have no idea how difficult and how long it takes to actually manage the digital asset transfer from one to the other, right? Huge. So there is very much a project underway, a company in formation called Hotel ID, right? Which is focused on exactly that area and looking right now whether they're going to build on Glyph or not, you know, out of Switzerland. Hugely important. And you know, if you're an OTA like Booking.com, for example, you have thousands and thousands and thousands of these hotels. They're changing flags all the time. Your database needs to be current, otherwise Annet can't book a hotel. How do you know it's current? How do you know it's accurate? Right? This is some of the tooling. So, you know, to have a capability that works for the traveler, same stack, huh? Capability for the traveler, capability for the organization, capability for the thing, the building in this case, hugely consequential. And that, you know, and we talked about a little bit about, you know, access control, which I think is a huge area, and I hope we get a chance to talk about it. But there's one other thing that I do think is really important here, and for ecosystem creation at scale in travel, it is really important that the technology scale down, right? And what do I mean by that? We saw in COVID, right, that a little bar around the corner can act as a verifier with an iPad and a QR code. That's scaling down because so much of travel is actually at that scale. If it requires connection of back-end systems and huge cost and upfront investment and technology skills in order to participate, then they won't be able to participate, right? So the fact that you have organizational identity, you have identity for the traveler, you have identity for things, and it scales down, that is a win-win-win all the way around, as far as I'm concerned. And I can't see anything else that does that.
Yeah, and it's a really interesting point, because when you think about advancement in travel, I think from my perspective, maybe you'd be different, Nick, because of the industry that you're in and the clients that you serve. But I definitely think about the actual traveler first. But it's a really interesting notion to think about how this new technology will impact the companies working within that industry. And I'm imagining as well, proving, I mean, there's another project we're kind of working on around organizational identity. So it's not even proving the entity itself is legitimate, but it's also proving that the person you're speaking to that works at that entity actually has authority, kind of, delegated proof, or, a proof of authority, I guess, to actually represent that hotel. Like, how do you know the person you're speaking to is actually, a person that is able to make those decisions? So, yeah, that's really interesting. So, Annet, I'm just kind of moving back into kind of some of the things that you've said as well. So before this episode, we scoured and we looked for interesting things that you both said. And one of the things we picked up on from you, Annet, was you've talked a little bit about how travelers, how soon they will be in charge of what they share. And you alluded to that a little bit in your previous answer about the kind of guy who was looking to take all your information away from you. So if people are going to start being in charge of their own information, how is that? And also, what kind of mindset do you think shift that's going to take, both from maybe travelers to some extent, but I get the sense more the companies working within the industry and the organizations who are all too used to actually just taking as much information as they can get. How do you see that dynamic changing? How will we change that mindset?
That's a great question because that is where it's at. We can build something or think we built something in theory, but for the ecosystem to grow and be scaled down, as Nick says, to that level, people need to adapt and understand. And we are all brainwashed in centralized identity. We go to Amazon and we buy a washing powder because it's on sale, and we open an account and we give away all our data, and then it's stored on a central server, and then we get sent this washing powder. Now, next week the washing powder is on sale in my local supermarket. I walk over, I buy it, bye. I don't have to give, but we find it completely normal that we give away all this data and it's stored on a server somewhere. Whereas maybe if I buy something from Amazon, I just have to log in as I exist. And then when I do, I buy something and I pay because that's interesting. And then for Amazon, and then Amazon can give me an account number, and if I agree, they can collect data. But I'm in control of that then because they don't need to know I'm Annette. Why does Amazon need to know my name or date of birth? Because the supermarket around the corner doesn't know and it doesn't need to know. So that is just a simple example, but there are many other examples whereby we need to learn that we only share what we need to share. And what the other person is allowed to have, which is the basis of basically the GDPR and like the Californian privacy rules and regulations. So we need a mind shift there, and we need a lot of explaining there. And there's, in some countries, a lot of distrust now with government, thinking that this is government overreach, and that if you have everything in your wallet, then everything is mixed up and everybody can read all data. It's understandable that this is a complicated concept. So you have to explain this to your mother. And if your mother is relaxed with this, or your aunt or your uncle, they need to understand what's going on. And we need a good use case. We need some killer use cases that will explain this. I think what will help is that if people understand that you buy alcohol, you share your 18. You don't have to show the whole card. You're just sharing your 18. If people want to go on a adult website, there's a lot of that going on right now, and you just share that you are over 18 and nothing else, and you remain anonymous. There is many, like I said, you're a student. You don't need to share. If you show your card, they can see who you are, what's your name, what's your date of birth, what's your student number. No, you're a student. You're eligible for a discount. That's it. So once we have these use cases, and we have also, very important, we need an ecosystem that is, I love this scale down, Nick. I'm going to repeat this because it is it's the pub around the corner. It shouldn't be very difficult to become a verifier, because in this system I am the holder. It's on here, my wallet. It's on here. I'm the holder. And if I go to a hotel, the hotel will issue a voucher as a verifiable credential in my wallet, maybe add a key in my wallet. That needs to be verified when I get to the hotel. But it could also be that I'm issued my driver's license and I show it to the police, and then the police is the verifier. I'm the holder, I get issued credentials, and they need to be verified. So that's the system: holder, issuer, verifier. And to create that system, of course, a government is big. They will be a verifier, but the pub around the corner shouldn't buy a very expensive system to verify. It should be easy. It should be there should be a business case there, of course, and that is still that's still difficult. So on the one hand, we need a public advocacy explaining why this is important, that you have an identity online whereby we are maybe just people, you exist, or you're over 18. This is important. Don't overshare data. This needs to be explained. And on the other hand, we need to build an ecosystem. So we have quite a lot of work to do.
That's really interesting. And Nick, have you found that? I mean, I'm not going to suggest on some levels it maybe seems that that you're somewhat further down the path, but I'm not sure. But you kind of talked about kind of working on this for kind of 3.5 years. I mean, Annette, maybe it's similar timeframes. How have you handled that kind of mindset shift, Nick, within the kind of project that you mentioned at the start? How is I guess, the education of this new way of traveling? How has that
Yeah.
been received, and
Well, first of all, I would say, first of all, the project I've been working on is still not live yet. The destination has to grow and come up, but getting people to understand that there is an alternative to just a central database run by a government or a big company that's going to store all this information for you and give it to you when you need it. That actually was a message that you had to repeat every single day. Every single day, you're explaining the basics and the principles, and that these things are happening, and being able to point to the EU projects and say, look, that's happening over there. Being able to point to Bhutan and say, look, there's a country over there. You know, being able to point to projects that are real projects that are happening out there right now. I mean, for example, Ethiopia national ID, right? It's months old, and it has millions. I think something like they're targeting 50 million. I think population out of 100 million, targeting 50 million, and I think they have 10 now, and it's 5 months old. So, you know, huge opportunity there. And by the way, that company that's providing the infrastructure there to support national ID is the same company, same infrastructure that will provide you the digital door key in your hotel. Right? Think about that for scale and sort of reliability and trust and security. So, you know, you just got to go at it, is really what I'm saying. But once you do, and I found this, there will be people that get it, right? There will be people that get it. And I found generally the younger ones are the ones that get it. And, you know, a few champions, a few people, you know, network effect. And to the extent that the project that I started, which I'll just call it Traveller Pass, actually became Education Pass, and became something else and something else and something else, because you realize the reusability of the concept, right? So yeah, you plant a seed, basically.
Yeah,
but you gotta water it.
yeah, of course. And just kind of coming back onto the point where you know, we talked about kind of Nick's phrasing of kind of scaling back almost, and you know, how quickly maybe this is going to start. I think within the EU particularly, it tends to be a jurisdiction that regulates first, but because of that, it would appear to progress. The innovation part would appear to progress slowly, but all the foundation and building blocks are in place. At that point, it really seems to take off. I'd imagine it would be the same here. So if there's should businesses have a sense of urgency about how they become part of this system, you know, and how should they start to prepare? You talked about the pub around the corner being a verifier relying party of this. How should they think about preparing?
I'd like to sometimes say that the EUDI wallet is basically the operationalization of the GDPR law, which was seen as a cumbersome thing to do, that everybody had to comply with. But once you do it, you only have the data. It cleans up your admin. You only have the data that you're allowed to have and you need to have. You comply. You're not liable for any legal breaking of the law. So this is the same with the wallet. But then you have, you can make the customer experience, the passenger experience, the guest experience much better. But at the same time, you know, you will only get the data that you need to have, and nothing else. And you can even keep your guests anonymous if they want to, and still give them a great service. But of course, you need to invest in this. So what I'd suggest depends. If you're the bar around the corner, you will. I wouldn't. I'm sure they're not on this podcast, but if they are, read up on it, get a bit of a grip of what the concept is and what it means. But there will be quality trust service providers who will start offering software to become a verifier to pubs, restaurants, etc. That will happen. But if you're if you're Booking.com, if you are TripAdvisor, to just name or if you're Marriott, I would definitely start looking into this, and I would start to get a grip of the concept. What does this mean for our business? What do we need to comply with? But especially, what are the opportunities here? Because Nick has been mentioning manifold, and I would prepare for this. So it is start understanding, and I don't know, Nick, if the same experience for you, but I've been repeating the basics of this for the past 2 years, and it's so we still need to do a lot of advocacy here to explain what does it mean, and explore together with parties like this, what are the opportunities here, and how do I need to change my business, what I can offer and what I need to do. And besides, the what is it, the Digital Services Act, I think it requires that very large online platforms, is the definition in EU law, need to accept this. So Amazon will need to accept this, Booking will need to accept this, TripAdvisor will need to accept this. If I want to use it, they need to accept it and be a verifier. So a lot of work. I'm repeating this, I notice. But it's starting to take shape. It's starting to take shape. And but it's now a matter of really getting the industry involved. And together with the industry, we're doing these pilots, seeing more opportunities, and looking at, like I said, there's use cases we can think of, but in 10 years' time, there will be use cases we've never thought of.
Yeah, exciting.
And we'll be surprised that we never thought of it.
Yeah, they'll appear obvious when we're told in hindsight,
yeah.
I guess.
Yeah.
One of the things that, I mean, you talked about standards. I think, Annette, you maybe mentioned it at the start as well. And obviously they're important because if we're all using the same formats, the same way of working, the same processes, we start to get this magical thing called interoperability, which, I've been in this decentralized identity industry for many years, and it's still sometimes talked about like it exists at scale today. The reality is it's aspirational still, from what I can tell, in many of the industries that we're involved in. But Nick, what's your take then on how close we are for true kind of global interoperability within travel? I know we don't have it today, but do you get a sense that we're getting closer to this dream?
Yeah, global interoperability of what? We are years away from sort of seamless global interoperability, let's be clear. But could I, in some country in Asia, take digital information from an EUDI wallet and just a yes or a no? Is this passport valid, or is this person who I think they are, and does it match my reservation that I have on file? Yeah, can do that, right? Should do that. Could I take a door key and put it in an EUDI wallet? Yeah, could do that too, right? And you could do the same with Ethiopia. You could do the same, in these little places. You could certainly, and you'll have to do the same recognition and with mobile driving license from the US, right? You simply have to. In travel, you have to, and you want to do it, right? And this is the bit that I think travelers don't really understand. As a travel provider, you want to do it. Why? You want to do it because it's going to save you time and money, which is labor, right? Labor and friction for your customer. So being able to get information digitally that you can stand behind, you can trust, and it can take 30 seconds, turn 10 minutes into 30 seconds. That's big. That's big with the sheer number of transactions that you're doing. So it will take shape through simple things. And if I can invest in a simple puck and stick it on a front desk of a hotel, and enough of my travelers can go tap, right? That's going to save me money. It's going to save me money, and it's going to make my travelers and my front desk people more happy and more effective, right? So that's really effective. But the other thing that I think we haven't talked about yet, and it's particularly present in travel and particularly in hospitality, is the sheer risk to the business of storing vast quantities of detailed personal information about your customers, which is frankly often of such poor quality that it's still a risk to the business, but it's not very usable, right? And it's getting to the point now that you have to stand back from it and say, well, I really hope my customers are going to arrive and can give me better information, because it will always be better, the information they're giving, right? So why do I even need to store it? And it's going to take a time, but I can tell you, if you want to have a chat with somebody about customer information, chat with the legal department, right? Chat with the CFO who actually has to pay the insurance premiums, right? Because these are really painful right now. So there's another side to this, right? Saving money, making things more effective for the customer, personalization, recognition, but equally hard, euros and pounds and saving money. That's where the conversation needs to be.
Yeah, very good. Thank you for that, Nick. Yeah, and it's important to point out interoperability is not a binary thing that you have and you don't have. There will be steps to it, like you mentioned at the start. I think as well, sometimes it's interesting that we spoke about this in a previous webinar, where sometimes it's assumed that some of these large companies, they want all this data, and often they don't want the data for all the reasons that you mentioned, but their processes are not particularly well refined or sophisticated, so they end up with these big kind of concerns of lumps of data that could be taken by adversaries. We're kind of getting close to time. We've got a couple of audience questions to pick off now. I'll kind of open them up to either one of you. I'm not sure who would know the answers. Question from James. James, thanks for listening and posting your question. James is asking, how far along are companies with development with these future functionalities? It's a very broad question, but things like, he specifically asked about Amadeus Sabre, which I think is maybe a booking system. Where are these companies with integrating with these new technologies in your views?
I'll take that question because
Perfect.
Amadeus is actually part of the EWC Consortium, and the pilot I mentioned with Lufthansa is with Amadeus. So they're actually using a wallet, an EU wallet from a private company, iGrant, and they're using it, piloting it to check into Lufthansa flights. So that is, they're at the forefront of this because of this. It's not operational. This is still in a pilot phase, of course. But because they are part of the consortium, they're learning a lot, as is Lufthansa, and getting ready to do this. But that's only the companies that are in the large-scale pilots. Now, the 4 large-scale pilots are wrapping up this month or next month, and there's 2 or 3 new large-scale pilots starting up, and there was a lot of interest to join those pilots. So there are hopefully more companies, but also universities, government organizations, member states, etc., will all join. And then hopefully that'll trickle down, and the experience will support the building of this ecosystem.
Fantastic. That's great. Thank you. I've got a question for you, Nick, just because you mentioned it at the start as well. And it's probably a lot we didn't talk about, but we never do get through everything that we want to talk about in these sessions. But you mentioned at the start agentic AI, which is probably, you can't almost have a technology orientated webinar without just even mentioning that word once. Bo comes in with a question. Bo, thank you for posting. He is asking, will travel agents be EUDI Wallet carrying AI agents in the future? What's your perspective on agentic AI within the travel use case?
Just Tuesday this week, company called Dataira, DATAIERA.com, just launched, and its first product is a travel agent, right? By the way, agent to agent built over DIDCOM.
Yeah, because I saw that gets around OpenID Connect concerns.
Yeah. DIDCOM for auth and customer PII sharing. So, and by the way, connecting into airlines and NDC and all that other back end stuff. So, that's what I mean. It's real. It's real. You can go and look at it. Go and look at it right now. A real company doing real things.
And was that incubated in DIFNIC as well? That project, was that one that was?
Actually, no,
okay.
It wasn't. It came out of left field, to be honest. Except for the, should we use DIDCOM or not? I believe there were some early conversations there, but really just very intelligent people making the right choices, and and here you have it.
Fantastic.
Right?
Yeah, fantastic. Yeah. So
and as I understand it, you watch this space, because there's going to be some pretty important things happening. And some big announcements.
Yeah. So it sounds like there's a lot of progress. To answer the question then, we kind of said at the start of the kind of webinars, we wrap this up. Digital IT is having a huge impact across not only individuals traveling, but also the companies working within the space. And we're seeing lots of pockets of innovation, both kind of big and small, really right across the world. So definitely a very exciting space to be involved in. But that's us for this session. Annette, I really want to thank you for your time. Great insights also from you as well, Nick. I really appreciate you spending the time, and we look forward to seeing you on the next webinar that we host. But thank you very much for your time.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.